We're on the heavy now, man. Yes, they did. Sitting in front of our.
Yeah.
Mark.
They said it was on the back. We had the dogs.
Is it like?
Okay, we're gonna start the meeting. Yeah, if everyone can rise. I signed up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If everyone can be, we're just gonna have a moment of silence for Marty Rapkin. I don't know how many of you knew Marty. He lived here. He was in a Southern Ellenville, but he lived here for about 20 years. At his wife's longtime family home, which they moved into after they passed. Marty really believed in Ellenville. He would talk your ear off about it. He would let you know his opinion, but he was upfront with you. He was my neighbor. He was one of the first people that introduced himself to my wife and I when we moved into our house 8 years ago. You know, we only have people here for a short period of time. They come and go, and we want to appreciate them for while you have them. And it's always great to have an incredible neighbor. So I just want to remember Marty for a minute and, you know, thank him for all the efforts that he put in his time here in Ellenville. Thanks, everybody. Roll call, Trustee Briggs.
Present.
Trustee Knighton.
Present.
Trustee Ellis.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Younger. Present. So we have a number of things for tonight's agenda. I think the two most important things are we have a public hearing at 6:15 for the CFA application for the Community Development Block Grant. Mr. Blower and Bill Brown from Delaware Engineering are here tonight. This is a critical grant for us. As had a sewer plant refurbishment project which needs to go through to correct a number of notice of violations that we have. It's approximately a $6 million project, $3 million of it, which we are going to receive an EFC grant for. The other $3 million is tentatively going to be funded with 0% EFC funding. It's still amounts to $3 million that the sewer fund will be burdened with. So this grant application would be an offsetting grant, potentially upwards, depending on how everything plays out, it could be upwards of $2 million, but it would probably be about $1 million. So it's critical that we move through this process. Public hearing is a part of that, and hopefully we can execute this and get that money to help our ratepayers. And then at 6:30, we have a public hearing on the 2025-2026 budget. Okay, so we'll jump into approval of minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for March 31st, 2020.
Any discussion on it? No. Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes? Okay. Can I have a motion approving the April 14th minutes? Oh, I thought you only did.
We did vote.
Okay. So let's see, minutes, yeah, I don't see Elena tonight, I don't see Debbie Bradford. Oh, you are, okay, you are gonna, but not for the Hunt Memorial.
Yes, she did.
Okay, so do you wanna?
Yeah, just quickly, the, on May 3rd at 10 o'clock, they're doing a fundraiser this weekend for Isabella Neville, who's fighting cancer. There's a softball tournament. First pitch is 10 o'clock on Saturday. Just letting everybody know that come out, support, watch the games, buy something. It's a fundraiser for her treatments. And,
Okay, Lee, would you like to come up and speak to the board?
The indivisible Ulster now own the branch. And we are hoping and planning to have a pro-democracy rally right here in Elmville's own Liberty Square. Seems that our 250-year-old democracy needs defending, and we want to be part of its defense. We would like as many of you as possible to come to it. It's going to be May 24th, we hope, at noon for only an hour or so. And our theme is to defending democracy at Liberty Square. Please, everyone, tell everyone you know about it, so we get this big crowd. I want everybody to know, in 1972, we had a similar rally in Liberty Square with the rock band to support our candidate, George McGovern. And he won Massachusetts, and he won Elmville. We had a group of teenagers, mostly, will go door to door at every house. We had sleeves, flyers in the square, big table, market. The successful, we hope this is equally successful. So what do we need to do?
So I know we spoke a little bit and we sent an email over, so you are requesting use of the front lawn of the Hunt, right?
Yeah.
Were you looking to use the portico on the Hunt? The front patio area?
If it's allowable, if it's possible.
So John, just to confirm, is the village in control of the use of the lawn and the portico, and it's only the Hunt Committee controls the use of the interior of the building?
In terms of reserving it, but if
Yeah.
there's another event that day, it may conflict, so when you
Okay.
check with maybe, or actually, someone would have the schedule of what's
Okay.
going on, so maybe an event inside that it may conflict.
Okay.
Be a conflict.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, Michelle would have that.
And separately, you were hoping to potentially use the, around the fountain, basically, the two little.
Yeah, it's you know, unpredictable, you know,
Yeah.
how many people are going to show up.
Yeah.
And
And not Canal Street though, correct?
no.
Okay.
No. Like the police department. you know.
Yeah, so chief, logistically, what are we looking at to just have those two areas right there around?
So, we don't know what the number of people are, but certainly it can accommodate quite a few.
Okay,
I think we'll be on it.
okay. So I guess from the Hunt standpoint,
correct me if I'm wrong, there's still basically, do we have to, is there a formal application? Okay.
Wait, but why would he need an application if he's just using the patio, when we don't make other people apply to use the?
John was uncertain if anyone else was using it that day.
But when we already have the application and it's May of someone. who-
No, but they might already have one in. I don't know, we'll have to check the calendar.
Okay, but in general, for the exterior of the building, is there an application to utilize the
Yes.
exterior? There is, okay. All right, so I mean, we'll just go through the formality of it, and we can check A, scheduling, make sure there's no conflicting schedule. B, we'll just have you fill out the use form, and,
You can email.
Does Hunt has a form also?
say that again?
Does the Hunt,
It's a joint application. It's a joint application.
all the one application?
Yes.
Okay. And then we can give conditional approval, chief, if there's no logistical issues that you foresee. We could provide conditional approval for both spaces and basically contingent on that there's no conflict of interest. Is everybody?
Yeah.
Is everybody?
Yeah,
good
I
about
have
that?
no problem.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so can I have a motion to approve the use of the Hunt front lawn, the portico, and the two side streets on Liberty, right around the fountain on May 24th at noon for approximately 1 hour or two, for Indivisible Ulster to hold a rally.
I'll make a motion.
Second for discussion.
Second.
Looking at the street, requiring insurance.
I
think
Yeah,
so.
but it's for a
Yeah,
round.
we are.
Oh, have we closed it? Well, we've had protests before, but we didn't close the street, but like when the people protest for abortion, when the NAACP was there, we never closed down the street.
You're looking at that area essentially from the Hunt, the small street going over to the island there with the Boy the Buddhist and so on. So you would be looking at the street closed so that you can have, depending on how many people you have access to that area,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
There, my understanding was they weren't looking to go into the street and that's why I said there's no issue, but if you're going to go into the street, then we're gonna have to.
Good
You don't really,
that we will go into the street.
well, you definitely have to know that in advance, if I'll have to barricade that off.
Say that again.
I'll have to know in advance so we can barricade that off for you.
Well, could you?
So,
I would say
so
yes.
with your permission, can I get together with Lee, piece all that together and we can set it up for.
Sure, so the one question though remains is possibility of insurance. Past precedent, I mean, when there have been semi-organized rallies, have we requested insurance? I mean, I guess it's like one of those questions of free speech, are we impeding on free speech, allowing them to use public space? I mean,
But if it's on the street, if they're on the street, that's, I think, that's,
let's dig into some of this a little bit, just to see.
I'll look completely.
Okay,
Okay, we'll figure that out because we'll have a meeting, well,
okay,
figure out,
Call me or?
yes.
okay. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, just quick,
Sure.
if, there's, no use of the Hunt, you know, the steps and some of the portico or whatever, does all the rest settle out, or is there still the issue of insurance that has to be, Tom, and you got in the phone?
Yeah, potentially the insurance issue, I think we just need to see, truthfully, I don't have enough knowledge base to determine whether or not that we could even require insurance, if this is just a gathering of people to potentially protest, or giving us advance notice of a potential logistical challenge. I mean, you know, I look at the protests in New York City, did they require insurance for them to protest in the streets? I don't know the answer to that. So we can try to get some clarity.
I doubt if they went to the city council to get that, but if.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that if.
Having an organized gathering on a piece of village property, so.
But
When we had rallies on Black Lives Matter, and we did it in Liberty Square, it didn't require insurance.
That's what I
Yeah,
was saying, yeah.
yeah, that's what I wanna get clarity on. I mean, my general thought is that if it's a rally of people just kind of spontaneously collecting together, even though they don't have an organizational structure, that, yeah, I mean, I would hesitate to impede on that right, especially considering that's what happens almost everywhere else. But let's look into it, you know,
And I'll,
in all fairness.
you look into it and I'll.
Sounds good.
Get it right.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Lee, appreciate it.
So there's a motion, it's discussion.
So let's table
sorry.
it, we'll table it till the next meeting. Okay, so withdraw the motion to table for is it May 12th, Michelle, is the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so it is almost 6:15. I'm gonna just wait and we'll open the public hearing at that time. Yeah.
I probably still in the mind though.
In 30 seconds?
30 seconds.
Okay, here we go.
Are you sure?
Ready, yes.
Wait,
We have two, we had a couple of graffiti incidents that were coupled with two juveniles from the city of Kingston that came down here on a UCAT bus. They also did a couple burglaries. We identified them, we've arrested them, charged them, they're going to family court. Today there was a bad accident involving a cement truck and a Subaru head on at the points. One thing I'd like to see for the next board meeting is a discussion if we can get DOT to do something about that intersection up there. The points 52 where it meets Center Canal. We've had a lot of bad accidents up there, including people that have lost their legs as a result of some of those accidents. So I'd like to be able to discuss it at the next meeting.
Okay, I'll reach out to DOT and make them aware of some of this,
Yeah,
to see if they have
let's
any
get down and
options.
take a look at it, because the
Yeah.
residents up there came up to me today and like something's got to be done. And that's one of those intersections. Other than that, we have, we do have one open case. We just found we got another juvenile looking at a burglary. And he's gonna be picked up shortly from the family court as well.
Okay, thanks, chief. Okay, can I have a motion to open the public hearing for the 2025 CFA application, Office of Community Renewal, for the Office of Community Renewal Community Development Block Grant Program?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Mark? Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll give a short introduction, and then at a certain point, we would want to encourage public comments.
Absolutely.
I would ask anybody who has not had a chance to sign the sign-in sheet, please do. We will, as part of the application, submit a copy of the attendance sheet. So if you don't have to sign, but if you would be nice. I'm Mark Lauer. I'm a grant writer. I've been working on grant applications in the greater Orange County, Ulster County, Sullivan County area since 1978. More recently, I've been working for the town of Worthing since 1998 on various projects with water and sewer, in particular focusing on Grahamson and Apponaug. We got to the point that we're running out of projects for Worthing. We're doing one last project and basically it's done. So that's what we call success. We used a lot of grants over 20 years to vastly improve the infrastructure of those two neighborhoods, plus other projects of various sorts. I've been asked to help with the village on a grant application that's due in July. This is the HUD Community Development Block Grant Program. Small Cities Program. Make a long story short, going back to urban renewal days, HUD has given grants to municipalities for a variety of improvements that primarily benefit people of low moderate income. US HUD has two types of programs. Entitlements. If you simply show up, you get money. That includes New York City, Buffalo, Syracuse, urban counties like Dutchess County and Orange County that have a sufficiently large population to merit an entitlement. So they'll get, let's say it's Orange County, they get a certain amount of money each year, and the various villages and towns, let's say Monroe or Walden, they apply to the county for a part of the entitlement. In our case, we're a non-entitlement county. Ulster County does not have a direct HUD entitlement. Individual municipalities are free to apply for a piece of a non-entitlement pot of money, which is approximately $50 million. And of that, maybe 20 to 25 million is reserved for public infrastructure as a grant, not a loan. And each year we have an opportunity once a year to apply for up to 2 million for that. 2 million applies to a jointly funded project such as we already have EFC funding for the wastewater treatment plant. If it's a standalone project, the maximum is 1.5 million. Part of the process is to hold one public hearing tonight. We advertise in the newspaper. We posted it through the village clerk's office on their bulletin board and various other prominent places in town. It was posted on our village website. The preliminary engineering report was added to the website so anybody could see it. Extra copies of the engineering report are back on the desk. We'd like 10 copies if somebody really wants to see this. It's available. But I'm going to summarize it very quickly what we're trying to do tonight. I'm going to look at the executive summary and read it verbatim. The Village of Elmville owns and operates a wastewater treatment plant at Edwards Place. The facility is experiencing a number of structural and mechanical issues which present safety concerns for village staff and reduce the overall efficiency of the plant operations. New York State DEC has issued multiple notices of violation regarding these issues. The village seeks to identify rehabilitation that is needed to correct these and to seek subsidized funding in order to reduce the ultimate cost and impact to users that will result from a capital project. As the mayor noted, the approximate project cost defined by Delaware Engineering is about $6 million. Through the work of Delaware Engineering, and I tip of the hat to them, they did remarkable work so far on the funding. They got the project funded 3 million grant, 3 million 0% loan. The 3 million part's still a loan, and the goal tonight is to describe a project that would hopefully reduce that loan burden substantially for the residents of Elmville. On April 3rd, we had a conference call with the mayor and Bill Brown from Delaware and some other folks describing what we're hoping to do. We're hoping to apply for $2 million to displace part of the $6 million that we already have lined up. The catch is we're trying to replace loan money with grant money to make the eventual cost to the typical user in Elmville lower. The bottom line that they described to us is a scenario where we could add $2 million to the project via grant, but the EFC, who's already given the $6 million commitment, said they'd be pulling back on 1 million of their grant and reducing their loan by 1 million. So EFC would turn their project into 2 million grant, 2 million loan. Our grant comes in from the small cities program, and the new package becomes 4 million grant, 2 million loan. Round figures. So that's the idea. The report is here. We're hoping to make long deferred improvements that we're under pressure to do something. When the DEC is telling you to do something, you have to do it, and you can get fined. And so we like to be able to do it on our terms, not on an emergency basis, so that the idea that Delaware Engineering pursued for the village board is let's get the best possible funding. And I think the best possible funding we could probably achieve is that scenario where we get 4 million grant, 2 million loan at 0%. I think it's 20 or plus years. That's no interest. You're just paying back the principal. And that would be the project. Unfortunately, this is not a slam dunk. It's a competitive process. There's no guarantee it will be approved, but you only have to be approved once. So I've had occasions where projects, including Warsing, didn't get funded the first time. They got funded the second or third time, but people only remember the time you won. So consequently, that's the idea. This is your opportunity to give your thoughts on this or to suggest something entirely different. In the ad, we described this project, but nothing to say the village can't replace with something else. if there's such an outcry from the public that something's more important. But I will give you one little hint. What they tend to fund are things that are water and sewer related that directly relate to public health and safety, and especially if there's enforcement action going on from the DEC. That's how you tend to rise to the top. So again, I'm Mark Flower. I would encourage anybody with questions or comments to make life simpler for the clerk by identifying who you are so we can put your comments specifically into the transcript. And thank you very much for listening. Yes, sir.
Jeff, can you come up? And Jeff, if you can just state your name, your address, or your street that you live on.
Ruben Lincoln Street, Ellenville. Very impromptu, I have no, I haven't pondered this for ages, but I just, in reading over the material, just wondering if there's any possibility in this for affordable housing, monies toward that, any housing infrastructure. I know that county has been interested in that piece of property there.
Yeah, so I would say this is a very specific application for a very specific project, and I would hesitate to think that we could mingle two different types of things.
Yeah,
Construction is not eligible.
what's that?
Housing construction is not eligible.
Not construction, but maybe working to rehab, any structure that is already existing.
There was a separate competition for single-family home owner occupied rehabilitation. That would not be part of this round. They have another round specifically home rehabilitation. Warsing did that some years ago. The second time they tried, they lost, and the documentation burden is substantial. And you could undertake a home rehabilitation program, but the amount of legwork and upfront cost to the village would be substantial, and it would not be for rental housing, it'd only be for owner occupied housing. So that's the short answer. If you want, if the village board wants to pursue housing rehabilitation, you may, but not through this particular funding round.
Right, and I certainly wouldn't propose to dilute this proposal, which has a very clear and specific focus. But I'm just wondering, given the kind of thing that the county is doing, I'm wondering if the village could either join in some way with that or do something similar if there exists such a property.
I mean, it is certainly something that we should look into more, separate of this specific application. I think there's always opportunity for something like that.
Affordable housing is certainly a, important issue for the community, and that's why I raised it.
Yep, understood. Thanks, Jeff. Would anybody else like to speak specifically about this? Yeah, you do, unfortunately. State your name and your street.
Hi, I'm Joni Kogan and I live on Church Street. And I have a question about possibly getting more money in that project for environmental, like, wildlife path or something like that, something to combine environmental quality thing, and that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak? And again, on this specific project, this grant application.
Francis Roller, I live at 16 Warren. My question is, the water treatment plant down there has been fixed one other time, but a few years ago. What's going to be different now that you're going for this, because it was built and it was put together and it was done like junk, and who's going to be held accountable for the bad work? Like, you're talking $6 million, right?
Yep.
And who's going to be held accountable if the stairs aren't done right or stuff like that? Like, you gotta talk to your operator and say, hey, listen, is everything going okay to your specification to make sure it's done the right way? Because if it's not done the right way, your operators are the one that know what's going on. at the end of the day. So if you're not listening to him and taking some advice from him, then. You know, so hopefully there's somebody that's gonna be down there all the time watching these guys do the work, because if there's not, then you're just really blowing $6 million.
So thanks, thank you.
Well, I think the first task is to get the money. And then, when project design is done by Delaware Engineering, and I deal with them in many locations, they're just number one in terms of, this type of work. And especially at getting funded. Many engineers can build a plant, relatively few are good with design and innovative with funding. And they really did the heavy lifting for me so far. And I'm really just trying to put it over the top. But when you actually do have the design, it has to be approved by the state. And you have a speedies permit that you have to observe. And very simply, when you go out to construction, if the contractor's not doing a satisfactory job, they don't get paid. And that's why we have inspectors from Delaware Engineering that watch every aspect of the job when it's being done. So,
and just to clarify, the engineering firm that we used for the sewer plant build out back in I don't know how many years the project went on, but completed in 2014 is not the company we're using now. Needless to say, that relationship went a different way. So we're hopeful and optimistic that, we have a good team, designing, building, and, there will be accountability for it so that this isn't such a nightmare for us. Is there anyone else that would like to come to speak on this specific grant and this, project?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so with that, we have to jump right, thank you, Mark, appreciate it. Thank you, Bill Brown, for coming down. We have to jump right into the public hearing, to discuss the proposed budget of, 25, budget year, fiscal year 2025-2026. A motion to open, or can I have a motion? Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So this again is a part of a formal process. We need to hold a public hearing to allow the public to comment on the proposed budget. And with that, we'd like to open it up to anyone who would like to speak on the budget. Okay. So obviously we have a slightly revised budget packet. I can, ahead of this, I can go through a couple of the quick changes that have occurred. Some of the big items, health insurance, John, you were correct. There was also an allocation issue from water, sewer, and general. The allocation split wasn't correct. So we dug into that a little bit more. And then also the projection for MVP was not quite settled. So I think it's a more accurate reflection of what we expected to do over the course of the fiscal year. The other item which I'm going to discuss after this public hearing is specifically the New York State Parks grant for the D&H Heritage Trail, which is a big chunk item. That project has been 25 years in the making and mothballed for just as long. That project specifically will connect create a trail from roughly the canal house that's over by Burn Road Park or Burn Road, and then ultimately work its way down towards the park, but then more significantly cross what were the former canal areas, which are now effectively wetlands, over into the Little League field. Which will then have a path that'll effectively make its way over towards the newly completed southern end of the rail trail in Ellenville. This was a federally funded grant that the village received back in the early 2000, I believe. Again, the project has been mothballed for many years. The grant, I believe, was worth $166,000. But as you can imagine, in 25 years' time, the cost of the project has increased dramatically, which is why the project never really went forward. But there's a caveat to that. One that we began to deal with in November is that it was resurrected a little bit unintendedly when basically the funding source needed to be converted. Basically, the program that it was initially funded under many, many years ago is ceasing to exist. So they need to convert the funding into a new program, which basically supersedes it. But the problem being that we have, as a part of that, we would have to agree to either commit to the project within 2 years, or we'd have to pay back these approximately $78,000, which have already been expended under the federal grant for design work, engineering, project planning. So obviously that's a big chunk item. Back at the end of March, New York State announced a New York State Parks grant up to $1 million. It is a 90-10 split, the 10% being the local match. For parks projects, things just like this. There's a number of different categories, specifically one being heritage areas. This project is quite literally called the D&H Heritage Trail. It's basically, kind of emphasizing and reconnecting what was a big part of Ellenville's history in that sense. Again, the canal house, the trail, then the canal works all along there. So to give you a perspective, the amount that right now we would need to commit to the project outside of this grant that we are applying to would be approximately $580,000. Needless to say, which is why this project is never going forward, but we're also dealing with the reality that we may have to pay back the $78,000 within the next year. So there's some work still to be done on whether or not the federal component, if we applied for this grant and received this grant, the federal component would need to basically be vacated. We would no longer utilize that. And we would just utilize the New York State Parks grant, or if this could be used towards our local match towards this project. So there's some variability still that we're trying to get clarity on from our consulting firm who has handled this grant. They've done other projects where they've received multiple funding sources. So ultimately in the budget line, there's $75,000 for this. It's basically to either pay back the amount that we've expended if we can't move forward with the project, or better yet, if we're gonna have to spend $75,000, if we qualify and we're ultimately given the grant, I expect up to $75,000 would be the 10% local component. It may be closer to $50,000, but one of the components of the grant is showing that you have funding available for the grant specific and the local component. It's not necessarily money that we have just laying around, but it's money that we have to either pay back or we have to finally complete this project. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to not just throw money away in the sense that we just give it back to the federal government and we get nothing for it. We're gonna have to expend this money, then we might as well see this come to fruition. It would be quite a development, quite a project. It would include a bridge that goes over the canal area, because it's a wetland area, but also to preserve the canal works that are there. It would rehabilitate much of the canal work through there. Let me rephrase that, not the actual canal components, but basically tree clearing, regrading. There's a berm through there that runs that would be reutilized. And more specifically, we connect our two busiest youth and public recreation areas. And specifically now the rail trail to potentially the completed Smiley Carriage Road that will hopefully be done by OSI in the next 3 to 4 years. So yeah, anyways. So with that, I apologize, I kind of went on a tangent there, but we're in the budget discussion. So that's a major component addition since the tentative budget. There have been other recalibrations to payroll lines, typically downward, as we've seen some of the numbers play out over the last couple of weeks. Yeah. So with that, if there are any public comments to be made on the proposed budget for fiscal year 2025, 2026, we invite the public to come and comment on them at this time. Thanks, sir. And again, just state your name and your street that you're on, even though we know who you are, it's for the record.
Cheryl, the old village hall. That work?
That works.
Yeah. So my first question. Sorry.
Sure.
My first question.
Sure.
Okay, I would like to know why I still see a payroll figure in here for a manager when we do not have one.
So we plan to have one for the 2025-2026 budget year. We have to budget that in. So it's there.
So you will be re-advertising for the position.
There is a component of this that we need to discuss, potentially a reconfiguration of it being a full-time and part-time position, and then we need to get clarity on what we need to do for that.
That leads me to a bunch more questions, but I'm gonna try to stick to just this.
Okay.
So you had a full-time manager before who was earning considerably more than this $25,000.
It's actually $35,000. It's split across the three funds, so there's $5,000 and $5,000 being split to water and sewer.
Got it, okay, still, it's less than half of what the previous person.
And most likely would be proposed to revert back to a part-time position as it was before our former village manager stepped into place.
And then I'm trying to understand how your treasurer numbers have gone. In 23-24 at 60, 24-25 87, and now 105.
Sure, so some of that is proper budgeting. I would say that the budgets weren't configured properly. That's why last year it changed quite a bit. Treasurer salary went up, the specific treasurer, but it was also, again, a reconfiguration of how we budget. And specifically this year, as we discussed at some of the meetings, we are no longer allocating any salary line to the Ellenville revolving loan fund, which previously was supported, say, 10% of those lines. So between annual increase, 2%, again, two lines, treasurer and deputy treasurer and the bookkeeper, which is part-time. That's a combination of them, but a lot of it, frankly, is just proper budgeting and guidance with the comptroller's office.
And once again, the elephant in the room, the police department.
Sure.
What are we doing?
In what regards? That's a service we have.
I don't see how, at this point to me, it's either we save the police department and lose the village, but we can't do both.
Again, that's, you're entitled to make those comments during the public hearing, but I'm not commenting on it.
I understand, I don't really expect you to. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Invite anybody else who would like to come up. So roll. Yep.
Trying to understand the golf course here.
Sure.
So 251,320, right? That's what you're saying the golf course is making, or you're putting into the golf course?
So hold on, just to confirm, which line are you looking at? Revenue or expenditure?
I'm looking.
Yeah, okay, so you're under expenditures.
Okay, so $251,000 on expenditures.
Yeah.
For what? On the golf course, because I mean, you don't have that many employees there. You're not running lights.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I mean, I could see if you were running a whole bunch of lights, there's nighttime golf going on. There's maybe 2 or 3 employees there. They can't be making that much of a salary. I mean, it's not a breakdown of anything, not a salary or anything.
So there are probably about 6 employees throughout. Again, mix and match. There's the greenskeeper, then you have the specific individuals who work under that greenskeeper. Then you have the front person.
Okay.
Their salaries amount to approximately 100 total altogether, about $138,000. Again, this is the tricky thing with the golf course, because on the flip side, there's a revenue line, right? So they have their own bank account, potentially, ideally, it might be better that they are their own fund, like water and sewer are, but they have their own bank account to keep everything separated. And they basically have to exist in that bank account, but from a budgeting standpoint, we have to include it as a part of our general budget.
So then what did the golf course bring in last year
Sure.
to keep themselves alive?
Yeah, so right now they're on track in revenue, just the revenue, so there's basically, I would say there's 4 income lines, if you will, for the golf course. There's general like day fees, if you will, which go under that line. Right now, they're probably on track for about $255,000. Again, there's still about a month left in our budget year. Memberships are on track to exceed the $38,000 that they budgeted for this past year. I'm going to keep that in line. There's the $30,000 worth of net donations that the golf course receives from the tournament. And
I just think the big thing is, as long as they're not being a burden on the taxpayers, because
completely agree.
you hear a lot about the golf course.
Yep.
And it's really not written out or under the way it's written out isn't very well on here to make it so it seems like the golf course is actually holding its own and doing really well.
Sure.
I think that should be something that maybe in the budget you could put, because it's doing good.
Yeah, so if you go forward, those lines, and again, that's the form of.
Oh, that's what okay, that's where you got it at, okay. I didn't see that, that's all I was asking.
No, absolutely.
So,
And listen, the golf course, right, that has always been a question. I had questions about it, I still have questions about it, for me, for right now, it needs to at least stand on its own, while, with some of the other items that we're working on in the village. Right now, it seems to be doing that, at a tolerable level, and again, the isolation of the bank account is the key thing, so basically, any work that the treasurers do, we bill that to the golf course, because that's work that they're doing on behalf of the course, even though it's a municipal course. We still view it as an expense that we wouldn't otherwise incur if we didn't have a golf course, so they should be billed for it,
Okay, which is understandable.
And again, keeping that separated with a separate bank account allows us some degree of accountability to it. Because ultimately, if the golf course account completes and it goes belly up, then that's on it, if you will. And we have to make a different kind of decision, but we're not there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else in the public that would like to speak on the 2025-2026 budget? But I give everybody a moment to think on it and ponder it. Okay, so with that, okay, all in favor? Okay, and just, did you want to speak?
I don't live in the village, is that okay?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's for village. Thank you. Okay, so and just to be clear, we're not adopting the budget tonight. We submitted it to the comptroller's office for review. They go through it, they work on, make sure there's frankly no mistakes in it, calculation errors. And they kick it back to us. So tentatively, we may adopt the budget at 5 p.m. tomorrow, if everything goes well tomorrow. If not, we will, I will request to hold a special meeting on Wednesday so that we can do that with the feedback based on the comptroller's office. I think it's going to be fine. Last year, we had a couple of things that came up, but that was really because the whole budget needed to be completely rebuilt from even a pure calculation standpoint. So anyways, so tentatively at 5 p.m. tomorrow, we'll be holding another meeting to adopt the budget. Chris?
If there's an emergency meeting Wednesday, what time?
So speaking of, you want to do it 5 p.m.? Yeah. Is that okay for, if we have to do that again? I don't want to announce that because we're not tentatively planning to do that yet, but if we do 5 p.m. on Wednesday, or potentially even 5 p.m. on Thursday, God forbid we get to that point. May 1st is the final day that we have to have a budget adopted by. Again, I dragged this out as long as possible because I wanted to see real numbers as they came in and have as much data as we could. This is the first budget year that I feel fairly confident in the numbers that we've received. But again, we're still missing about a month of those numbers. And ultimately, once we adopt this budget, it's going to be just like last year. It's going to be really tight this coming year. And it's gonna be a situation where every week counts, and we're gonna kind of do a postmortem on this budget year once we get to June 1st. So that's kind of the next month ahead once we get past this point. Okay, so. Yeah, so that discussion point,
I have a question.
sure.
Is our budget on the strength of we're adapting, we're doing a cap of a certain percent now for taxes, or is this in the meat of the 2% tax?
It's not within the 2%. It's roughly in line,
With what? What percent?
it's approximately like 7.5% based on the tentative budget.
Okay.
You know, again, as we discussed, frankly, you know, this is the bare minimum that I think this can operate under. You know, it's what I discussed about a year ago, unfortunately. I, you know, kind of expected this. You know, you can only go so far where you bleed something to death. You know, year over year expenses are down about $450,000. You know, it took a lot of work to get there to close it out, but you know, some of that ultimately wasn't sustainable because it was just to survive a budget year.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
wanted to be clear that we would be on a tight budget even with the 7.5%.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's gonna be a difficult budget year again.
Okay, thank you for clearing.
Yep, absolutely.
I just got one thing.
Yeah.
So you're talking about that this new budget's gonna be in that 7% tax range. So since you're raising our taxes that much, right? What are you giving us in the village, okay? And the reason I ask that, I live at 16 Warren, okay? I have 18 Warren that lives right next door to me. And if anybody knows what 18 Warren looks like, you would not want to live next door to me. Okay? I've got people that, I don't even know how to say it nice, that are unwanted, that live and go in and out of that house day to day. I mowed the lawn the other day, I find hypodermic needles on the lawn. There's no need that I live next to that, okay? But you all wanna raise my taxes 7%. God forgive me, but the police don't do nothing. They know most of them. And they keep it moving, they don't say nothing to them, they don't, oh, clean it up. Nothing, and it's a shame, I got kids. I don't want my kids seeing that, I got a nephew, little guy wants to run outside, I can't run outside because of, I'm not gonna let him go out there. And God forbid he gets stuck with a needle. But I got to eat 7% of my taxes, and I get it, you all gotta do business. But at what cost on the backs of the everyday people that get up and go to work? Like, it just isn't right. You know, I get that you gotta run a business and you got the water department, you got the sewer department, you got the guys that work down at the town barn down there. But at what cost do we have to keep eating it over there on Park Street and Warren and Circle and Church? When I say it like this, if it was Maple or Canal, it wouldn't look like that. It would not look like that, and it isn't fair to us because we may not have the nicest houses and stuff, but man, we sure in the heck do pay our bills. You know, and it's crazy. The landlord don't give a crap, but I gotta keep eating it month to month, and we've had this conversation. But I don't see that as fair. I've had the conversation with Dan. It isn't fair. Everybody keeps saying, oh, she's getting evicted, she's getting evicted. But we all know how that process works.
Yeah, so you know, for your and for your specific situation, I would say in 2 days, there's gonna be specific enforcement action. And I hope it's a step towards resolving that situation, because as I saw the other day, yeah, that's intolerable. No one should have to live through something like that and deal with something like that. And it's again, an emphasis we've made over the last 6 to 8 months is it's quality of life code enforcement, the garbage, you know, and it's, you know, obviously you see it, right, at your property, but it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
You have all of these different random properties.
I don't think it's just parking.
No, it's not. It's
everything.
a lot of.
We gotta start holding these landlords accountable, and in all honesty, you can't hold a landlord accountable for something that he's not doing if you're sitting at your desk all the time. Like, I get that there's 1 or 2 people, but you gotta get out there and see this stuff, because, you know, There's 3 cars parked over there, none of them got plates on them, none of them have registration, but if I did that,
Oh, they're right on your ass.
I'd be held accountable for it, you know, and then I got tickets up the rear end that I gotta pay to make you guys happy for what's going on. But she's not paying them, nobody's paying them, so it's like, at the end of the day, you could write all the tickets you want, you're not gonna get the money from them. You know, it's a shame, it really is, you want the village to look nice, but we just don't want Maple and Canal, we want the whole village to look nice, especially if our taxes is going up 7%, you know?
Yep, we agree with you. Okay. So I'll jump back into the discussion items. So we had a special meeting this past week for a payment to NG Energy Resources. You know, obviously saw some of the feedback. It wasn't great that we had to do it in the middle of the day, but it was also something that we had to get done this week. To give everybody a little background perspective of what it was, a number of years ago, the village entered into an agreement, third-party energy supplier. So when you get an electric bill, you have your distribution cost, which in our case is all Central Hudson, and then you have your supply cost, which in many of our cases is also Central Hudson. But as individually and commercially as the village can, we can all choose a third-party energy supplier if we want to. The village chose to do that. They entered into a fixed agreement at 10.5 cents a kilowatt hour. Unfortunately, that was an unfavorable rate over the last 2 years. Central Hudson's average for the last 24 months have just been each shy just of 8 cents a kilowatt hour. So, as you can imagine, our various facilities, sewer plant, water operations, pumps, well pumps that run 24/7, Village Hall, the Hunt, everything that uses electricity, including the street lights. You know, we were paying roughly 20% more. I think it was a reaction to the start of the Ukraine war when energy prices spiked for a number of months significantly. But ultimately, we wanted to exit that agreement. Late last fall, we basically stopped paying them. We had a utility audit done, and ultimately they verified the usage, but certainly we wanted to get out of it. Ultimately, they also wanted to get out of it because of non-payment. We were able to negotiate an exit where we didn't incur any penalties, but it needed to be done immediately and quickly. So this is why we held a special meeting this past week to do that. So going forward now, we're back on Central Hudson's. Central Hudson is our energy supplier along with our distributor. And, you know, it should save the village approximately, I would think, $8,000 to $9,000 a year going forward. So anyways, I just wanted to bring that back to light. And with that, if I can have a motion. Oh, no, we had a never mind. We had a formal meeting. We don't have to do a motion. Okay. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the Drinking Water Protection Plan public presentation. So the village has been participating in creating a water protection plan for the village of Ellenville and its water sources. This is a grant through New York State. It's at no cost to the village. Barton and LaJudas basically operates it for they are the engineering firm that handles this for the state. They basically bring us in, as they have with many other municipalities, and do an analysis of our water works and specifically our water sources and what can be done to protect them. Drinking water, especially as time has gone on, has certainly become, I think, our most valuable resource. If you don't have clean water, you have a real big problem. We obviously have a couple of different water sources, wells and Lake Maritanza surface water source. Even though we're not using Lake Maritanza right now, that is a part of the plan to protect it. We're blessed in the fact that the State of New York Park Systems and the Palisades Park Commission encompasses that water source. So you would want for us to find a better steward around that property. We're not going to have to worry about houses or an industrial site being built around it. But more specifically our wells, and I think it's important, certainly in light of a proposed landfill due north and west of us. Theoretically, it's not in the in the watershed, if you will, our wells, the downstream source of it. But I mean, when you look at the map and you look what our aquifer protection area is going up into Mountaindale and up into Sullivan County, it's certainly very close to it. The drainage plane goes towards the Rondout Reservoir, technically not down our side, but you know, it's a little too close to comfort. So anyways, this plan has been developed and formulated over the last 6 months. It's been many meetings, typically once or twice a month. And it will be presented to the public on June 9th at 6:15. Barton LaJudas is going to come down. They're going to speak to it. It's going to have quite a few graphics for us to look at, identifying, again, our critical water sources and then potential contamination issues that could come up. You know, we're talking about like Mountaindale has a heating oil depot off the main road. God forbid something happened to that and it entered into the, you know, the water system up there, you know, eventually flows down to here. And do we need to be prepared for that? How do we prepare for that? There's a lot of issues. Both of our wells right now are effectively in the same aquifer. So if you had contamination at one, there's a risk that you would suffer contamination at both. So that's why it's critical that we get ahead of this. Also, we aren't effectively fully in control of our well sources right now. One resides on a piece of private property. The other well basically exists on the very fringe of the village bounds. And it's something that will hopefully help us too with our planning for the future specifically. You know, we probably need to get another well source back online. Ideally, I would love to see Lake Maritanza brought back online. And this will help us with potential grant applications because it could define need by defining risk. So that's the goal. There will be that public presentation at 6:15. I encourage everyone to come, listen and understand. So yeah, so that's coming up. We talked about the New York State Parks Grant. Yeah, consulting firm is helping us. I would like to reaffirm the proposal to assist with the grant application for the New York State Office of Parks and Recreation for Historic Preservation for the Recreation Grant Program. So if we can have a motion to reaffirm. All in favor?
I think we skipped on the other one. It says, we talked about it, but the special meeting we already talked about on April 29th, so that can come by 26, but at 5 p.m. One of the points on the final.
Oh, so it's actually just a discussion point. Yeah, so it was just to clarify, again, in this public meeting that we will be having tentatively a meeting tomorrow at 5 p.m. as we discussed, you know, about 5 minutes ago.
Contingent upon the comptroller.
Yeah, I just, again, for the, you know, disclosure and so that we're saying it as much as we can, there will be a public meeting at 5 p.m. tentatively tomorrow to do this. Okay, so moving on from discussion items, police report already happened. Mike, anything on streets? I know you were off today. I don't want to. No, nothing. Okay. Mike, anything for sewer? I know we have a couple of agenda items.
Yeah. Basically, I'm here for any questions. I mean, it's self-explanatory.
Yeah. With the pump, which pump is this?
It's the pump.
Yeah.
I'm
sorry, the new motor.
Motors for the washer compactor. The motor that's on there now, it's a gear drive, so we have to put the motor in. There's a hole in it.
Yep.
And brought it out.
Okay.
So we happened to order a pump several months ago. They're coming down to replace the pump.
Okay.
With confined space issues, meter, place and everything else. So while they're there, instead of getting a separate time where they come in and charge us for travel.
Yep.
We're gonna get it both done at the same time because we have to.
And just for the nuance, what is a washer compactor?
It takes stuff that comes in the sewer and compresses it to get what we need.
Okay.
To promote.
Good bugs. Good bugs. Okay. Okay. So with that, can I have a motion to authorize payment to Gosser the amount of $2,325 to install the new motor, calibrate the gear drive with the motor.
I'll make the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have a motion authorizing Bruce Donahue to attend New York State Rural Water Training Session for OSHA Construction and Health, 10-hour credit course that is put towards their sewer license and the credits. Okay.
You get 10 credit hours.
Yep, total cost for the training and hotel would be $305.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Mike.
Right.
Anything else coming up?
I hope not.
Okay.
We don't wanna jinx it, we'll be fine.
No, but, this, on the other thing, you should think about Maritimes and more, with PFAS and PFOA coming in,
I completely agree with you.
that's a source that's away from everything.
Yep.
And everything's ground level and.
Yep.
So you should be somehow getting money for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to Mike's point, I mean, we're kind of privileged to have potential access still to not just a surface water source, but a surface water source that is quite literally at nearly the highest point on a mountain range. I would say it's gonna be one of the last bastions of clean potable water over the next probably 50 to 100 years. And to Mike's point, and I know it's been discussed probably for 15 years, is that it would be great to get that back online. There's some challenges with it, a lot of costs. But it may be the fact that any cost is worth it simply because if you have a contaminated water system, you pay almost anything to have fresh water. So yeah, to your point, which kind of brings up some of the items in the water report, which I'll jump into now. So I'll jump to the Harris Well refurbishment. This is just an update on that. As a number of you have attended the meetings over the last year or so, or last year specifically, Harris Well is in dire need, or Harris Well number 2 is in dire need of refurbishment. We have tried to do that over the last year. We basically would be taking nearly 50% of our capacity offline for about 2 weeks, which puts us, you know, in a more guarded position, if you will, during those 2 weeks. So one of the things that we needed to work through, the street department's help, is basically find the leaks and fix the leaks, to basically boost our total system capacity by not just pumping it into the ground. So they had their work cut out for them. Then the winter came. By the time we kind of got to a place where we felt comfortable, we did an initial test back in October. You know, winter was right around the corner, and then we had a number of significant leaks. We had some issues. I would say there were hydraulic issues where the tanks weren't filling quite properly. But we're in a place now where I think we're basically there. I think we're targeting in about 2 weeks. We're going to take the Harris Well offline for 2 weeks and begin the refurbishment project with Lane. To put this out there, Chris, I wouldn't quote that May 12th date yet because we haven't formally set it, but I would say in the next month we're shooting to get this done once and for all. I will be issuing a mandatory water conservation notice ahead of it. That will be put in the paper. We will reach out to you. The paper will have a public notice put in. We will ask if you can write an article on it, blast it on Facebook. We will do the same. We will issue a robocall for it. But it will be mandatory because, you know, we will be at a very fine balance of getting through those 2 weeks. We're going to be reaching out to a number of our high water users, if you will, commercial properties, to just make them aware of the situation, ask them to conserve in any way that they can, if there's any strategic way that they can conduct their work in a different manner, and, you know, help us get through those 2 weeks without any kind of issue. In preparation for this, we've been working with the town to get the interconnect ready, that in a very worst case scenario, one that I don't imagine we're going to be dealing with, but God forbid that we have to, and basically the other well can't keep up, or we deal with some kind of catastrophic leak during that period of time, that the interconnect with Napanock and the Greater Wawarsing system is ready to go. Tim Montana has been down, Freddie and him have been coordinating. They've prepped the interconnect, they have flushed the different lines on both sides of the system, so that if we suffer a catastrophic depressurization of the system, we can open that interconnect up and begin to repressurize our system. It happened, I don't know, 15 years ago at one point in time, I think maybe during the hurricanes, but hopefully we don't deal with it, but everything's about preparation. So that's where we are with that. Hopefully everything will go smooth and we will gain a significant amount of capacity back. Right now, the Harris well is probably operating at maybe 25% of its total capacity. This would boost it right back up to nearly 100 of what it was, so. I have a motion approving an emergency purchase for a fire hydrant. They didn't have any in their inventory. A hydrant had a bad leak on it and we need to get it replaced.
I'll make the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Building report, Dan, I know you wanted to set your workshop date, to discuss, property manager and owner registration.
Yes.
This is good, 'cause this would help with the problem that he's spoke of. Where property managers not doing what they need to do and we're paying more on taxes, but we gotta do it, we gotta do it. So this would be great.
This is exactly what that's geared toward. In addition, 18 is being taken care of on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, the dates, first of all, I think it would have to be done on a Sunday, simply because a large percentage of our property owners are Jewish, and Saturday they wouldn't be able to attend. So I was hoping to have the meeting sometime between the 18th and 25th, gives us plenty of time to send out notices. I'm sorry?
18th and 25th.
Of May.
Yeah, I'm gonna avoid the Memorial holiday
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah.
Maybe-
Oh, that's the 20,
That's the 24th and 25th.
okay, all right, I don't have that listed on my calendar.
Yeah, I mean, I would say let's schedule it for June.
No.
I would like to get it ahead of June because the lawns are going to be required to be
Okay.
cut
So
during May.
let's schedule it, tentatively, we'll schedule it, do I even need to, I mean, are we gonna have a quorum there of board members? On that day,
go just because I'm the liaison.
I'll show up because I wanna.
so then we would
Yeah,
need
I
to.
think it's great to make sure that you have
Okay.
most of your property owners here,
Dan,
because
you-
it's gonna affect them.
You have some contacts of some of the property owners that we hope to show up.
Well, Nordine has contacts to every one of them.
Well, let's,
That, we're gonna
yeah.
be sending out letters to every one of them with
Okay,
a copy of the application that I submitted a couple of weeks ago. This way they'll have an idea of what we're looking to do.
okay.
Okay.
So we need,
Now, if they show up, that's great. I want 100% participation. Obviously, we're not gonna get that.
Yeah.
But I want them to know that this is happening, and I want them to know that they're gonna be held accountable for failing to let this
So what
happen.
time are you gonna be having this?
Well, so,
I
yeah,
know
let's-
some of your other public would like to be there too.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
so it would definitely, in this case, we're gonna have trustees at quorum. It will be a public meeting it will be a publicly notified meeting, as it would be anyways, but it has to be specifically publicly notified because it will be yours approved. Joe, I got a question for you. Do you think Sunday would be a good day? Just, from your experience with some of our landlords and people who might be here, just to get some feedback.
I don't think Sunday's a good day, big travel day, especially with nicer months, there's pretty much something going on every Saturday, Sunday from now until.
Yeah.
So-
I know that's a problem.
So do we do it, so we don't have a meeting on the 19th, how about Monday the 19th?
That would be fine by me.
Okay, let's schedule it for 5 P.M. May the 19th,
Okay,
okay?
So I'll move to schedule the workshop to discuss property manager and owner registration for May 19th at 5 P.M. Village Hall.
second,
All in favor? And then Michelle, can we tomorrow immediately start the notice for it? Okay, thank you. And then Dan, as you can, especially with the contacts, if you can reach, fine. And Dan, if you can start to reach out,
I'm gonna have Northern work up a list and we'll get everybody on the mailing list there.
Okay,
Plus we'll go out to, obviously, the public, because we
Yeah.
do want the public to attend.
okay,
okay, great.
okay, thanks, Dan.
And Jim, if I just add, just because
Yeah, thank you.
just because it could sound like it could be obviously a good thing, but a hot topic,
Sure.
by my math, about half of the village residents are renters, give or take.
Yep.
Then I think we should figure out ways to start holding them accountable for a lot of what we heard about, what we hear about, and what legally we can do.
Yeah.
Again, I don't need anything tonight, but something to think about beforehand, how to get buy-in from our local tenants and renters to help keep their place beautiful and keep the whole village people. So.
Yeah, and you know, I wanna round back to that, and I know, right, you know, especially when you're dealing with specific situations and we see it. I will say it was a point of emphasis about 6 months ago, and you know, we get the building reports, and you know, the building department has made a point to start really issuing tickets for a lot of these quality of life things, littering, vehicle issues,
Garbage.
you know, I drive around and basically just send a photo and say, you know, it's very clear, right? Like something egregious, something that's not intentional. Dan would relay that you know, I might drive in and Dan does the same thing and Nordine does the same thing too. Again, quality of life stuff, it's little things, but it all adds up. A, just from having to live here, but also B, for people who are just coming to visit. Like, you know, we don't want outsiders to view these properties as what Ellenville is, and we don't want our residents to have to live in that. Yeah.
One of the things that we have in our zoning law already is the right to tow junk vehicles.
Sure.
We have that right. We've just never exercised that
Sure.
right because the cost involved.
Sure.
That is a problem.
So maybe we get the police department to buy in a little bit too, so.
That would be great.
Drive around
I mean,
24/7.
I could point out 7 different properties right now that have violations. One's gonna be in court on Wednesday.
Yep.
But these are junk vehicles that can't run.
Yeah.
And they should be able to be towed.
Yep.
And scrapped, basically.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Dan. We can definitely, again, as we did with a couple of the other problem properties, you know, I want our building department to feel comfortable that they have the support of the board to objectively and fairly implement a lot of these laws that we do have in place and mechanisms that we do have in place.
I'm comfortable with you guys doing that.
No, absolutely.
The cost,
Yes,
a lot of these things are cost prohibitive.
I agree. You know, it was like the dumpster. Again, that's why we went through the process that we did so that everything was documented so that we could.
We also have a full dumpster right across the street from his house that I can't do anything with because they're closed for the winter.
But just not that, but the garbage goes from 18 Warren and goes right over to the
Yeah.
dumpster over
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So again, we're defeating the purpose of what we're doing. And I'll say this, I don't think anybody minds taking an expense on that is gonna show progress.
Yeah.
It's when you're not showing progress and you're taking an expense on for not doing something. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, let's, you know, if you gotta do something, you gotta do it. And I think we all sitting here understand that, but it's when nothing's getting done and you just keep eating costs.
The problem is for us to eat the cost and hope for payback from somebody else. Like that dumpster at the kosher ice cream place, that thing is full and overflowing.
Yeah.
And yes, from 18, it's going to that dumpster. That for some reason they stopped, and I know for a fact that there's no mailings with addresses on it in there. I
So
went
then
through those garbage bags.
let's specifically talk about that one situation, because again, much like the property on Warren, I believe, or on Circle rather, and the one on Church, you know, there are certain mechanisms we could use, and I'm not against using them. Again, we'll just make sure we follow the proper process, and we'll go from there.
But in that case, what the proper process would be is the owner of the property has been notified, the manager, the owner of the business has been notified.
Sure.
Yet nobody, they did clean up the garbage around the dumpster.
Sure.
Some of the garbage is still behind the dumpster. But right now, what we should be doing is hiring a garbage company to empty out that dumpster and just put it on the taxes
But
of the
again,
property owner.
exactly, and I would potentially support that. Let's just make sure, if we're gonna do that, let's go through the motions as we did with the property on Circle. And so that we can do just that and levy it onto the taxes.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll make a motion authorizing payment to Dan Cullen in the amount of $238.70 per mile from April 1st to April 20th, 2021.
1 second.
all in favor? On the treasurer's report, it's a discussion basically, as you saw in the board packet, about opening an M&T Bank credit card. A couple of weeks ago, we ran into an issue where the village has a credit card, right? We use this for a lot of our subscription payments. You know, it's our Microsoft Exchange account for our email server. It's for antivirus software and a litany of other items that basically need to occur and it's on a credit card. The credit card is just a random credit card, it's Select. They're just a random company, apparently we get some great airline points that go to nothing. But we ran into an issue about 2 weeks ago where, basically there was a fraud hold put on it, just out of caution. But the problem being is that, we suddenly became aware of this only because a lot of these subscriptions started to basically go into default. One morning, our email stopped working because the payment was declining. Right, not a big deal, you call your credit card company and you get it resolved and everything goes through. The problem being though, is that the principal users are no longer employed with the village, so we do not have the authority to do so. And that all takes time and we can have time, so I used my own credit card so that we could have email for a couple of weeks. It became very apparent to me that maybe we should be doing business with an institution that we have a very established relationship with, that being M&T, where we could quite literally go to a branch and say, we're having an issue, you need to resolve this immediately, quickly, and we can talk to someone who knows us, understands what we're dealing with, and can get it resolved. So the proposal is there. I want to bring it up for the next meeting. We basically have a credit card through M&T Bank. It would provide a nominal 1% rebate on our costs for whatever that's worth. Wouldn't be airline miles, but it would actually be a dollar amount back in our pocket, which would be beneficial to the village. So anyways, and then we would terminate the Select credit card going forward. So anyways, at the next meeting, I'll bring it up hopefully for approval. We're gonna get a little more information from Tom Murphy.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
I'll make a motion, reaffirm your proposal to assist.
Already did that one.
We did that one,
Yep.
that's done, that's one I wanted to check.
Yep. So the next one I want to table just for one more meeting. So this is for a motion to sign a 60-month lease for basically, like most commercial institutions, we have a commercial lease for a copier. This proposal is half of what we were paying, but there's one more company I'd like to just get a number from. Well, we already have two, I'd like to get one more.
Okay.
I will say though, if this is like $5 or $10 more expensive than this other potential bid, Chris Kelly Company is based in Monticello, they are absolutely phenomenal.
Yes, and
If
they
you have-
show up whenever you call.
Yeah, if you have a problem, they come the same day, it's the benefit of having a local business.
Yes.
And local service. The school was using Xerox for many years, and I would not kid you, they would spend 3 weeks waiting for someone just to come, just to say they don't have the part, and then 3 weeks later they'd come back and get it fixed. My counterpart and I spent quite literally probably 10% of our work week moving copiers around. We switched to Chris Kelly Company and we don't have to deal with it. So anyways, just for consideration, but I want to get that other thing, so people.
So then,
Yeah, so and I just want to clarify this before we motion.
Okay.
So this motion to authorize myself to sign the New York Rising subscription single audit certification forms for years ending in 2023, 24, 25. This is specific to the Hunt Memorial Emergency Shelter Grant. Basically, we need to have single audits done for the years before the closure of this grant. We have not had those single audits done. We could not get them done until the AUDs were completed in the comptroller's office. There's basically a dollar amount threshold for each year. It's $750,000. If you do not exceed that amount, and basically you're a recipient of this grant money, you do not need to have a single audit done for those specific years, which are 23, 24, and 25. So we just need to sign a certification that, which they're already aware we have not received money in excess of $750,000. But I have reached out to accounting firms, 3 of them, to basically get bids to have these single audits done, so that once and for all we can close out this grant, which after 5 years' time, we can then potentially open up the Hunt Emergency Shelter for other uses. Even though we completed the project 3 years ago, because we haven't closed out the grant, that timeline hasn't started. So with that,
I'll move it.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion authorizing Jardine Pickle Tour 24 hours a week retroactive from April 1st, 2025 until June 30th, 2025. Second,
All in favor? Thank you. Okay, board member. Okay, with that, I'd like to, can I have a motion to go?
Oh, I don't have anything.
Oh, sorry.
I don't have any.
You guys looked out of your head.
Executive session not to reconvene.
second,
Executive session to discuss personnel issues and contractual.
Not to.
not to
Not to
reconvene,
reconvene.
not to.
Oh.
Can I just tell you now?
Yeah, please tell. Sorry, Tim.
I'm sorry, I completely forgot.
Okay.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hi.